welcome to the Front Porch Podcast. I'm Jessica Alarcon, and I'm here today talking to Sam Greenlee, who is a neighbor here in Oak Park, and he is also a executive director of Alchemist Community Development Corporation. That's right?
Yes.
I got the name correct. Yay! So thank you for joining us, Sam. And I'm really excited to have you here and be talking to you. Just to get started, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and how you ended up here in Sacramento and in Oak Park in particular?
Sure. Yeah, thank you so much for having me too. I'm really happy to be talking with you. So I am an Oakdale native, so a small town just outside of Modesto. And my wife, Amy, is originally from Rockland. And so, we met down in college in LA. We moved to New Jersey for a few years for school. And with all that moving, realized we really wanted to be back in California, and more specifically back in the Central Valley. And Sacramento kind of came on our radar. We both always liked the city. We're kind of drawn to it, and it was a nice middle ground between our hometowns. So we kind of set course for Sacramento. In 2014, we moved back to California, stayed with her parents in Rockland for a while, and started exploring Sacramento to see where we'd like to be. And came across Oak Park and found that we just really loved the people that we were meeting in Oak Park, and loved what we saw at the Oak Park Farmers Market, and just really felt drawn to the place.
And so you've been here since 2015-ish then?
Yes, we moved into Oak Park in 2015.
What was your experience just moving into the and getting connected and meeting people?
It was kind of amazing. Like I mentioned, we'd moved around a bit between college and LA, and then in 5 years in New Jersey. We'd moved, I think, 3 times, and didn't quite find a strong community connection anywhere, although we tried. And moving to Oak Park, it seemed like there's just already a community at work that it was easy to connect to. It I describe it as like being a small town feeling, although part of the big city. Although in some ways it's a big city thing too, where it's in cities that you find all these opportunities to run into people and to encounter people and meet people. So I think honestly, the OPNA Facebook group actually was a really helpful place for us to start. I think there aren't that many neighborhood association Facebook groups that are so active, but it proved a really good place at the time to meet a lot of neighbors digitally. And then beyond that, there were opportunities with the farmers market, a great chance to start to meet people there. We connected really early on with Randy Stannard too.
Okay.
And he and I connected and put on a couple of events. We did like a bat house building workshop and that sort of thing. And those ended up being really good places where I met a lot of neighbors who had kind of similar interests and connections.
Okay. I'm trying to think, because it feels like, I've definitely seen your name on the OPNA website, and I was trying to think back because it feels to me like you've been around for a long time, and so I'm like 5 years. Wow.
Yeah, it seems like a lifetime too.
Just you've been really active. It seems like you're someone who's just been in a presence for longer. So that was interesting to me. So what do you think it is? Because I kind of, my husband and I, when we were looking for a place to settle in Sacramento, had a similar feeling about this neighborhood, and we weren't really connected digitally with the neighborhood when we started looking back in 2008. But I'm just curious what you think it is that, we were attracted to the neighborhood because it felt like there was a possibility, and it just felt like there was more of a community here than a lot of the other places in town. So I'm just curious what you think it is about Oak Park that, gives off this feeling, even for people who aren't particularly connected people from the outside just kind of looking in?
Yeah, that's such a good question. Um, I think it's probably so many things that come into play. I think part of it is that a lot of people in Oak Park have been in Oak Park a long time, although obviously there are a lot of new people moving in the past decade or so. There were a lot of longtime residents who'd really built community, and with, I think the neighborhood had, suffered a lot of disinvestment. We know, like with redlining and those impacts on it, that I think there probably was a lot of need for mutual aid among the community just to survive, and I think like that really kind of created some networks that we probably still see the fruit of today. But I think just even the built environment really plays a role. I think having the mixture of all these interesting next to complexes, next to quadplexes, and then there's retail mixed in. It's built more like the way a town used to be built before single-use zoning, and so there's a real chance to meet people. I can walk a couple blocks and I'm at a business where I'll meet new neighbors or see neighbors that I know. I really do think too. I know so much work went on behind the scenes, as you've already talked to Joni, but in creating the farmers market, I think that really does so much too. It's just such a place for everyone. It's made so accessible through the CalFresh program there too, and it's that you just find all sorts of people there mixing together, and it's a great chance to do that. But yeah, I don't know. It definitely has something special with people who I think want to be in a community together.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. As I've talked to people, it does seem like there's a bigger desire for that here. And I kind of hope that that's something that keeps coming. So you mentioned that you'd been involved in some of the local events going on, events with Randy. I know I've really appreciated a lot of what he's done in the neighborhood over the years too. What other kinds of things have you been involved in since moving here?
I think I connected with Randy early on because I kind of threw myself into, we had our first daughter was born a month after we moved into our house. So we moved in September 2015 and she was born in October. So suddenly I did not have the free time that I had once had. So I was really trying to connect largely digitally or at scheduled events because there was less chance to be out. So I kind of went on a run there for a while of creating media groups. So there was the Oak Park Plant Exchange, the Oak Park Wildlife Hospitality Group, Oak Park History. Some of these, there were some others too that didn't survive. They didn't get the adoption, and so they don't have that. But some of these groups really, especially the Oak Park Plant Exchange, was created to help people share gardening tools and garden advice and plants and seedlings throughout the neighborhood, and that one's really just done great. But kind of coming out of all of that too, the Oak Park Fix-It Cafe ended up emerging from this. So I found, I think it was around 2016 or so, or early 2017, started talking, kind of daydreaming out loud in conversations with neighbors and friends, but also on the DNA about what if we had a place where we could share skills with one another, and we're not paying each other, we're just teaching things, we're fixing items for one another, and just all of this really tangible work. Because I personally believe that one of the best ways to get people to know each other is to have people work side by side. There's a lot less pressure than sitting down at a table with a discussion topic. If you work side by side, conversation happens. And just kind of dreaming aloud about that, connected with some other neighbors who were really passionate about the same idea. And so like Jared Fisher and Rosalie Hagstrom both connected, and we started the process of creating the Oak Park Fix-It Cafe, which up until COVID has temporarily shut us down, was really a great spot.
So can you describe the Fix-It Cafe? It's wonderful. It's one of the things I've really wanted to be involved with and was not able to prior to COVID. Can you describe it for those who don't know what it is?
Sure.
And what
Yeah.
do you feel like how it works?
Yeah. So it's a monthly gathering. It's when it's happening, it's the third Saturday of every month, and it's all volunteer. Everything's donated, and so at the Fix It Cafe, we have a few things that are always available. So we have a bike maintenance and repair station where you can come and people who know how to work on bikes can help you work on your bike. And as they tune it up or fix it, they also can teach you what they're doing. So you're gaining a new skill. We have similar things with small appliance repair. We have a volunteer named Bob who just can fix anything. It's amazing, but he has helped fix so many things. We have a sewing station where you can either learn how to sew if you just want to learn from the start, or you can get help with making a repair to a garment or hemming something. So those are the things that we started with. We always had those three areas. We always had a snack bar set up with food and beverages that were all donated, all free, and a kids entertainment area because people need to bring kids, and that has often had fun things like face painting or something along those lines. Over time, we added tool sharpening and like knife and scissor sharpening. And we've experimented with other things, but those have been the things that have really stuck. So it always feels like a miracle when you're there. Like, hey, all these people actually showed up, and we actually have people here to help people with the things they bring in. You have people from all different income levels coming in to get things fixed. So we have neighbors who are experiencing homelessness, and they get a chance to come in and get a zipper fixed on a backpack. And you have somebody coming in with their Tiffany lamp that needs to have the switch replaced. And like sometimes they end up sitting down at a table together eating soup and fry bread across from each other and chatting. It's just really, there are people meeting there and caring for one another there who just probably wouldn't have the opportunity to meet elsewhere.
That's, yeah. I've always thought that was the most exciting thing. And so, as you mentioned, that's been shut down for quite a few months now from COVID, as has so many things. One of my questions, you mentioned that, getting engaged digitally originally was kind of, you have a family, your child was born, and you had less time. And you certainly are someone who stands out to me as extremely engaged digitally. How do you think, in light of the situation where it's been 9 months?
10 years.
Right? It's been so long since, and there were many things, I know the farmers market stayed operational throughout, but in a very different way. And, that was something that has been huge for my family to engage with the neighborhood. And, since the very first day until this year, we went just to be there, and we would support the vendors and whatever, but, our whole purpose was really just to be there and be with our neighbors. And that didn't work out so well. That's really wasn't as much of an option this year. It really was, come and support the vendors and, keep your distance. So I'm just curious, what do you think? How do we engage with each other now? As neighbors, and start building the kind of beautiful community that you guys developed around the Fix It Cafe, with the limitations that we have.
Yeah. Well, I'm hopeful that we get to be back in person with people in the coming months. I think that's just so important. But, I do think that the neighborhood was fortunate that so much kind of digital infrastructure already existed, all these kind of online gathering spaces for the neighborhood, so that people already had that way to connect with neighbors there and have those conversations. I know for myself, so many like Facebook friendships have come out of people who are in the group, and somebody eventually sends each other, so neighbors who I don't get to see in person right now, I see them, and I get to interact with them just digitally and keep those conversations ongoing. but it's not the same, I've seen like the Oak Park Plant Exchange has been growing faster than it ever did before, which is really interesting. I think we've probably hit the 1,000 member mark now in that group. I haven't paid that close of attention, but we were nearing it a month ago. So I think that people are still on there posting and saying, hey, I have these seedlings to share, and doing porch pickups and that sort of thing. So I think those really like, tangible acts still do build community. I think it still feels special to go pick something up and borrow something. But yeah, I'm hopeful that the main things that come out of this are that all of us getting used to Zoom and that sort of thing will make more of our meetings and more of our in-person gatherings more accessible to people who maybe have a disability and have a difficulty getting to a meeting, or their child's situation means that they can't make it to a meeting, but now it's being broadcast live. So I hope that we can build on that when we're allowed to go back in person.
Yeah, well, I think certainly this has shown us the value of certain things, and allowed us to come up with ways that we can accommodate people otherwise. So moving on, you how recently became the executive director of Alchemist Community Development Corporation. Can you tell us a little bit about what that is? I know that the organization has a presence in the neighborhood, the farmers market, and share a little bit about that.
Yeah, so I joined Alchemist on June 1st as the executive director, and it surprised me as much as anyone, but it's really been a joy. So, Alchemist has been kind of a known quantity in the neighborhood for years. It really has its start in Oak Park. It's not specifically an Oak Park nonprofit, though a lot of people very understandably mistake it for that. It really is here to serve all of the Sacramento region. But the stated mission is to connect communities to land, food, and opportunity. And I think a lot of people who have interacted with Alchemist have interacted with it in a different. People don't always know what the other things that we do. People have often encountered one program. So in Oak Park, I think it's really well known that our work on land, what we call our neighborhood empowerment program. And actually, this all is interesting. It goes full circle back, tying into Randy again. He had been the director of an organization called Oak Park Soul. And one of the big projects at Oak Park Soul was Oak Park Soul Community Garden on Broadway. And then had started the work with, it was originally called The Corner, and now it's called the Oak Park Art Garden at Martin Luther King Jr. Boulevard and the 12th, 14th, that weird little sliver there. But a few years ago, Oak Park Soul joined with Alchemist, and we all became Alchemist. So that work came in as Alchemist work, and now there are these two really prominent land projects here in Oak Park. There's a third we're working on. There's a vacant lot on Pansy Avenue, which is in Oak Park. People may not know it. It's a 1 block long avenue, so it's easy to miss. But there's a vacant park we're converting into a community garden park. So all of that work is really happening there. But the main goal there is we believe that residents and neighbors have the most familiarity with the problems in their neighborhood, and they also have the best familiarity and ideas of how to approach those problems and solve them. And so we see our work on that as kind of coming in and building a trellis, and that neighborhood grassroots passion can grow on and bear fruit. The people need some structure and support to pursue goals. And so historically, it's mostly shown up as these urban greening projects that will continue in the future, but we're kind of broadening that scope too. We also really quickly, one of our other main programs, one is CalFresh at farmers markets. And so this is a program that when food stamps went from being food stamps, like actual physical stamps, to electronic benefit cards, and it became SNAP at the federal level, it suddenly made a real difficulty for farmers markets because every single farmer would have to have their own ATM machine to swipe people's EBT card if they wanted to use that. It wasn't really a possibility. So here in California, where we call it CalFresh. It's also confusing. So CalFresh is SNAP, which used to be food stamps.
Yeah.
It was set up that you can have a third party at a farmer's market who will handle all the transactions. People come swipe their card. They say, I want $20 off my CalFresh account. They get vouchers for the market. They can spend them just like money at the market. The farmers turn it back into the third party and they get cash back for those. So, sorry, there's no simple way to explain that process, but it makes farmers markets really accessible to people who are low income, which is great because it's, better quality produce and often at better prices. And then there's matching programs where you get extra benefits for shopping at the market. So the Oak Park Farmers Market, I should note, is actually one that Alchemist isn't at. It's run, they have CalFresh, and they actually have the most generous market match program in the region. And they've done some really amazing work on funding that market specifically. So I wish we could claim that was us there, but they're just doing a great job. But we do this work at directly at 9 different markets around the region, where you'll actually find an Alchemist booth, and there are 23 some odd markets throughout the region that we are doing work on the back end. So you wouldn't see us there, but we're helping make that possible. And our other area is we do training for food entrepreneurs, especially those who are low income or from historically under-resourced communities. We help train, equip, and empower them to start food businesses.
What kind of training do you provide?
So that is broken into 2 parts. We have what we call our Micro Academy. It's a 12-week course that is a crash course on the fundamentals of starting a food business. So we bring in all kinds of experts to give the different talks, but it covers food safety, it covers marketing, it covers incorporating as a business, food permits, small business banking, all across the gamut, some of the things you need to know, and really condenses that to help people access it. And over the course of that, they're also getting consulting from our program to develop their business plans. And people, when they graduate from that, can apply to our incubator program, which is 2 to 5 years of much more individualized coaching as they actually do the work of starting and growing their business. And we actually are currently accepting applications into our Micro Enterprise Academy. So that will be starting soon.
Okay. So I'm curious, how many businesses do you think Alchemist has helped get off the ground? Do you know?
Well, we're still early. We've had 3 cohorts go through the Micro Enterprise Academy. We've started our first 2 incubator cohorts. So we've had more than, I think we've had 69 different participants come through so far. I know there are several businesses that have been created from that, and several that were kind of operating that are now operating legitimately, or legally, I guess I should say, with permits, and others who have grown. So I should have those numbers prepared off the top of my head, but we're still early in it, and I think we're going to see a lot more.
Got it. So is this for people looking to create restaurants, or kind of cottage, like food preparation groups, or kind of a range of things?
Yeah, we have people kind of with all the different types of goals you have for a food business. So people who want to start a brick and mortar restaurant, people who want to start a food truck or trailer, people who want to be caterers, and people who want to make packaged goods for retail. Okay. And so everyone comes through. We give a lot of people who are already doing cottage food, but cottage food has really strict limits on what types of foods you can make, and I think it's something like once you hit $40,000 in sales, you can't go any further with cottage. So it really caps your ability to grow as a business. So help people kind of over that hump into the next stage. But we have people coming in who just have a business idea and they have a really good recipe. And we have people who come in with a business that's been running for a year, but they don't have a business plan, and they don't really have a look forward.
Okay. So I'm curious, what do you think? How do you think this helps develop community with the micro enterprise? training and whatever.
Yeah, so we think of that as inclusive economic development.
Mm-hmm.
Um, we see that there are a lot of people who have a great product or idea, a great recipe. They're good cooks. They have good talent. They have a lot of hustle. That they're hard workers. They're creative. They're innovative. But people who don't have that rich family member, or even just multiple family members who can help chip in and get them started. Most small businesses start because there's access to some capital through family, and they just need a hand up. And so part of the goal there is recognizing that people who have been really stuck in low wage jobs and that sort of area, there's a real opportunity for, and there's a big risk too, but there's a real opportunity in starting a business and having the potential to better support their family. And then there's also the ability to hire friends and neighbors, and it can really have an expanding impact on a community. Also, the creation of small local businesses, of course, those become hubs where community is created and celebrated. A dollar spent at a local small business is going to keep circulating in the local economy more than if it was spent at a chain. There are a lot of repercussions, where it can really grow the community.
No, that sounds beautiful. So you're providing resources and kind of assistance to people who have the desire and an interest in maybe some of the pieces, ideas and whatever to expand that, because you're right, there's a lot of things that have to fall in line in order to start your own business.
Absolutely.
Right. And so
yeah, it's very difficult. And we have people who go through the program and they come out saying, "Thank you for the program. I'm not starting a business anymore." and those are success stories in our book too, because they just saved 5 years of their life in a bankruptcy. They grasped early on that this is going to be a huge challenge.
Oh my gosh, it takes so much courage to jump out and do that, and put so much on the line to try to create something.
Absolutely. So we do our best to create opportunities for our entrepreneurs too, and to connect them to resources, help connect them to, there are lenders out there who will work to give non-predatory small business loans to people who maybe would business loan, and so we're working on those relationships to help connect people who go through our program and now have this education behind them to even like the capital that they need to really move forward.
Got it. That's excellent. So you said something a little bit ago that I want to go back to. There's that when you were talking about land use and everything, and you were talking about how the people in the community usually know, what needs to be addressed, what challenges or problems, and have ideas about the way to address them and improve things. And I'm curious what your experience has been with the Oak Park community, kind of raising up, here are our challenges and our ideas, and how do we further that kind of communication within the neighborhood?
That is such a good question. I really think that I think that we see some of these shifts in bigger, the way institutions are starting to do things, but I think there's a real need to proactively go out and get community input. There for a long time, public input has come down to putting out a plan to the public and giving people 2 hours to provide public comments that go in a notebook somewhere, and then the project moves forward. And I think it really has to start with that grassroots input. But part of that too, I think, comes with, I think there's a real need to empower communities to communicate to people that we actually do expect that you have good ideas, that your ideas are worth it considering and exploring and potentially pursuing. I think there are a lot of people who have great ideas and no one's ever going to because they just don't feel like anyone cares what they think, or maybe they don't expect much of themselves. And I think there's a real need to to provide, formal and real channels for communities to actually have input on the future of their community. I think there's so many ways to tackle that, and I don't know them all, but our little slice involves a lot of really trying to engage and get not just being open to input, but actively pursuing it. So we've created on our website a forum that says propose a project, and obviously we can't do most things that come through, but we wanted to make it obvious to people that we want your input, even if it's unsolicited. Well, it's not unsolicited because we've put it out there asking you for that. And we've been able to connect some people. Hey, that's not a good fit for us, but this group actually might be a good fit for that. Or did you know this is already happening? Here's someone you can join in. So, I think there really needs to be an active invitation for people to speak.
Yeah, that's a nice forum for that. I think as a community member, I'm trying to think about how else we might come together to have those conversations. And, I definitely see on the online forums, OPNA and elsewhere, that there is frustration in the community that a lot happens here, without necessarily, yes, there might be a forum to discuss something, but whether that actually results in, anything happening based on that input, I think a lot of the neighbors feel like, okay, we came and we talked and we weren't heard, or things just went forward the way they were going to anyway. I'm just wondering, because it seems, waiting for somebody else to make that opportunity isn't really probably the best strategy. How we as people who live here and care about what happens here, come together to make change ourselves and find a way to steer things in the direction that we'd like to see for our community.
Absolutely. Yeah, and what you're saying there makes me think that we almost need, more community engagement around the idea of how do we help make ourselves heard? How do we help bring the whole community in? That there's even brainstorming needed to figure out how to do a better job of getting the input in the first place. But I think there are a lot of feelings of disempowerment and so much the neighborhood. Again, this goes back to historical trends, but so many people are renters who don't really have control of whether or not they will be able to continue to access their housing next year, or what the price will be on their home. And so there's a lot of
instability.
Yeah, instability, and realistically recognize that people don't have a lot of say over their home.
Okay, yeah. No, that's definitely true when you're renting. Especially now. Just seems like so much is unstable.
Yes. So, having bought 5 years ago, my mortgage seemed high to me at the time, and now it seems so lucky compared to seeing what has happened to rent in 5 years. Right. I would not be living in Sacramento anymore if I was paying rent. It just wouldn't be in the works.
I don't know where we'd be living if we were paying rent. I agree that, our mortgage was, our plan was to do it on one income, and it was a stretch for us on a single income when we started it. And I don't know how many times, even though we've honestly outgrown our house, in terms of the size of our family, we're so fortunate that, we were able to make the stretch at the time because, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Trying to afford something here now in Oak Park or anywhere in Sacramento.
Yeah, and I think that's where we really, I've seen, definitely seen the seeds of it in Oak Park, but I think we need stronger alliances between homeowners and renters, and recognizing that sometimes the things that help boost home value and feel like a good thing for homeowners can be really detrimental to renters, and trying to find the policies that can, really help create affordable housing, create and preserve it so that we don't lose neighbors because suddenly our neighborhood's more valuable.
No, I think it's a huge challenge that I know, both of us have seen that conversation going on and on about how do we make that work, both for the people who are renting and been here a long time in light of, and still see things improve.
Yeah. We all like the improvements. We just want everyone to get to enjoy them and not just not for just be those who can afford to stay and enjoy them.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So we have run out of time, but thank you so much. It's really been a pleasure talking to you.
Thank you. I really appreciate it.
Yeah. And take care.
Thank you.